the Word was made flesh.
Then we saw his glory. We saw his glory
When the Word was made flesh.
Together, growing in faith, changing communities. Once again, dear friends, we hope you're doing well. Welcome to this segment where we are looking at the story of the prodigal son, and we are just looking deeply into the life of the father. And so, what do you have to say about the father?
He's a father who forgives, genuinely. I'm not sure whether he forgives because he's been waiting for this moment, or he forgives because finally he returns, his son returns. Whether he's forgiving himself for allowing the son to go, and also forgiving himself that finally the son returns. What's your take?
It's quite interesting that he forgives the son, but also himself. That's an interesting look into it. But he forgives, why? Because of time. You see, the thing that we never really hear, what happened when he was gone. What happens to the father when he was gone? You know, sometimes as you grow older in life, you look back into your life and you look at the things and the decisions you've made, and you realize that that wasn't probably the best decision. I could have done it differently. And the wisdom of getting older on with years somehow can make a drift or a tension. The older me and the child in me, sometimes I need to bring them into be able to sit around the table and have a conversation. As sikhuluma ngezono zobusha bethu, sikhulume ngokuhlakanipha kokushayeka kwethu endleleni. And let uyibona kuma kubaba ophenduka bogogo nomkhulu. Mase ugogo nomkhulu, they become a little bit more loving, more understanding, more compassionate. They are not as strict as they were. And so mukhuluma nge-element yokuthi he forgave, but he also forgave himself. I think that's something good.
And also i-gesture yakhe towards the son. I think uyamfundisa ukuthi what it means to be a father.
And he goes and he just embraces him.
He embraces him, no questions. Where have you been? How was it?
I'm impressed with that. You know, that welcome home. Did he cry?
I suppose so. He must have cried. I think he did, because of happiness, maybe, that finally my son returns.
But doesn't this man breaks all the masculinity and men don't cry, men don't hug? Fathers are supposed to be the strictest of them all, the lawmaker. He breaks everything.
And also, he shows us forgiveness, the importance of forgiveness and not waiting for someone else to say, I'm sorry. How often do we get to that point to say, yes, ungonile, yes, kwenzeke kanje, but I'll forgive, and not wait for that person who says, I'm sorry. Because kwesinye isikhathi we wait for that moment. No, uyena ngonile akafike phela ezosho ukuthi ngiyaxolisa. But when do we go deep and say, yes, wonile, but I'm willing to let go?
And ngiyamxolela engakafiki
Engakafiki. So that by the time efika, whatever they say, you've already mended the wounds.
Nokuthi ability to forgive, it's a healing process. You heal yourself because you know ukuthi the burden is so much, the pain is so great that I refuse to harbor this any longer. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to get angry unnecessarily. And I refuse to fill my heart with hatred. Imagine ekugeni kwakho kodwa ukhulumisana nezingane zakho, and it happens.
And I also think the father and the son needed this separation.
Yeah.
We don't know for how long, yes, but let's assume it was years of separation. They needed it for each one to find themselves. for the father to ask himself, how have I been a father? To the son who left, to the son I'm with right now.
Yo.
And for the son to ask himself, how have I been a son to my father, a brother to my elder brother?
It's an interesting view, eh? That space, that separation that has allowed them to come close to themselves. It's like what we have spoken about in the other segment, where you looked at this like a tree and the roots. How have I been? Ilula lento ngoba ekhaya kuve kulula ukugxeka wonke umuntu. Abangifuni, abangikhulumisi, abanginaki, abangifoneli, abangenzeni ukuthi no, it's all about me. But umbuzo ukuthi, but what about me? How have I been a brother? How have I been a son? How have I been a daughter? Ikuphi engikwenzile to contribute kule ngxabano ekhona kulo mndeni wala ekhaya. And I love that concept of awuhlehle khona la ukuthi in a heated argument mhlambe just pull away and instead of blaming lo munye angike ngizibuza ukuthi ikuphi engikwenzile mhlambe oku-agitate loyana or that aggravated a situation was waba more angry was wangizonda nokuthi ziningi izinto ezikhulumekayo umuntu emendinini. So that just take a deep breath, walk away and then come back. But I also think, what do you think about ungahlehli isikhathi eside?
I think that's important. Ungahlehli to a point that you end up justifying ukuhlehla kwakho. Because the more uhlehla, the more you look deep into it and you say, I know uyena who wronged me. And you don't get to go deep into you. You just need that moment, your khehla, do self-introspection and then return. While you still believe what I also contributed. Because the more uhlehla for a longer period, you end up saying, no, yes, I did contribute, but yena ungivumeleleni ukuthi ngihambe as his son.
And kube khona lento yokujwayela. Hayi vele sengihlalile ngingedwa. Akekho ngibonayo, akekho ongibizayo, akekho ongivakashelayo, vele abafuni ngibuye. And then that concept yokuthi, well, in any case kuyaphileka. Ngiyaphila engekho, ngiphilile engekho. And so I think sometimes there's danger ukuhlehla kakhulu. And you teaching lo munye umuntu to live without you. Kodwa futhi enye danger ngibonayo ilento ongancengi. Vele angibancengile. Vele ngi-right, vele awungiphakeli. I think there's danger nasekhaya ukuthi vele ngiyaziwa mase ngingenile ngene ekamereni lami. Vele ngiyaziwa ukuthi angikufuni ukuthi angikwenzi ukuthi. But also le fear ne danger yokuthi mhlawumbe sengihlehle kakhulu ngiyafisa ukubuya but angazi ngizobuya kanjani. And akekho ongamukelayo. Hence I'm very moved by the expression kababa. Umembona, he runs to him. It's like was. I'm moved with that.
And also the father emnikeza his identity back.
Wow. Okay, tell me about that.
Umnikeza his identity because ufika as someone maybe uyanuka. Ngoba desebenza ngengulube and he's barefoot. We talked about this.
Yeah.
And so ubaba comes there and says quickly sheshani. That on its own makes sheshani nimnikeze what he needs. He needs a robe, he needs a ring, he needs shoes.
That's quite interesting. The sense of urgency. Because ungena emzini wakubo as a slave in his mind. Psychologically, I'm a slave. Psychologically and physically, ngilambile. But obviously, emotionally, uselitholile lolathando. And after lithola loluthando, ubaba uyakwazi ukubuka deficiency. Uyabuka ukuthi uswele into ukuthi ayikho into powerful than someone who can see through your smile. And akubuza ukuthi, are you okay? Someone who can see through your tears and realize ukuthi these are actually tears of joy. Someone who's able to embrace you, even when you think you're strong, who sees your weakness, and Baba does that. And so when you come back a sense of identity, not a sense of urgency. Ngibuka kule segment esike sakhuluma ngayo ukuthi mhlawumbe ubaba ubuzile ukuthi usebuyile yini. Lezi isebenzi beyihlekisa ngaye ngekho. Sekuyena ubaba othi hamba nolanda. And you know ukhuluma ngokuthi umfana has been given back his identity. Has Baba not received also his own identity?
He has.
Because he was dead, he's alive. But what about Ubaba? What about Ubaba obehlekwa? What about Ubaba emphakathini? What about Ubaba othi, what kind of a father am I who loses a son?
And therefore I think that's the reason why let's feast.
Wow.
So that the neighbors will see they'll want to know why. We've seen the father waiting outside all these years, if it's years or months, but suddenly there's a feast.
A celebrating. Useyaphila lo muntu. Let's go a little bit deeper. Unikwa ama sandals. And a slave does not wear sandals. Unikwa a robe. And if we argue which it's a well-to-do family, it's fine robe. Unikezwa iringi, entering into a covenant. And probably le ringi in an insignia, in a sign of sonship. Mafanele glibizwe izinto. Kahle kahle. Unikezwa okwakulahlekile kuyena. But the insult of umusa kaNkulunkulu usinikeza okulahlekile kuvuka incwadi la ethi konke okudliwe isikhonyana ngizokubuyisela kona. And so ubaba uthi uhambe la uphethe ubuya ungelutho kodwa ngifuna ungene endlini usubuyelwe kona konke.
Nokuthi the restoration of his dignity.
Wow.
Ngoba kwesinye isikhathi people will wrong us, but isihluleke to restore their dignity. Instead, we will go out there and say, Nimbona ungenza ukuthi. Why can't we cover?
Ihlazo lakhe.
Ihlazo lakhe, ukungcola kwakhe, cover it and start anew. Because for me, the symbol here ring, it's a new covenant, it's a new beginning for the both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Come back, be my son again. Let's start over.
Wow. Let me teach you how to be a son, and for me, how to be a proper father. I mean, in the other segment, you have spoken about that question. How was he as a father? How was he as a son? And so, ubaba uchi asqaleni phansi. And I'm thinking, my families where they're struggling, yeah? Hayi sibanibani, hayi ubuyile. Ngine ngimxolelile. Kodwa ayi ukubona kami. Make sure ukuthi niyayifihla lezazinto ngoba uyantshontsha lo. And so I am in the house and yet I'm not welcomed. Kanlana, you're in the house and you're welcomed and you're given back more responsibilities.
Nokuthi our own spiritual covenant with God. Would we return, we are sinners, but we return and God gives us and restores us to our identity.
Unkumbuza methi kuJobe 42 verse 2 athi icebo likaNkulunkulu ngomuntu wakhe lingeshintsha umuntu. Ukuthi I may be down and out. Abantu bangahleka bathi sebeqedile ngami. Uyazi khona abantu abashiyile empilweni bayitshela ukuthi we will never get up again. Kunabantu abashayile bayitshela ukuthi we will never have the courage to face the world. Kunabantu abashiye izinto ibheda bathi njoba ngimshiya loyana uyozabuya zoxolisa kumina. But wena uNkulunkulu esibuyisela ukhohlwe khona konke. Athi I'm giving back. Athi ngiyakunika, and it's like ngiyabukela enkosini. No, Nkosi, I don't deserve mina ukuthi. No, Nkosi mina athi uNkulunkulu, I know you don't deserve it, but ufuna ukunikeza kona. And I'm thinking umuntu ohlele ekhaya othi I didn't think uSibani will ever forgive me aphinda kwazi ungamukela aphinda ukuhlala nami anginike lolu thando anginike lenjabulo anginike lentokozo yokuhlala. But there's an interesting question with me now. Ithi le question yami, nangu mfana unikezwa izingubo, unikezwa iringi, unikezwa ama sandals. If bekuwena buzofila kanjani?
Being the father.
Well, both, or be on the both side. Being the father, you're giving this to him because you're excited. But being the son,
firstly, I would start on my journey into the village. Let's assume the house is at the center of the village.
Yeah.
Yonke le ndlela abantu bayangibuka. The last time they saw me, I was well off. Sengiyabuya nginje, ngiyanuka, I'm barefoot, ngiyafika. That humiliation again. I had it in the distant region and I'm having it again.
At home.
At home. And already, kuleyo journey sengitshela ukuthi vele mangifika, everyone in the neighborhood already knows. Ukuthi nginje. By the time ngifika kubaba, vele I have nothing. But I would feel as though I don't deserve it, but I'll welcome it. Ngoba kwesinye isikhathi khona izinto esesibuke sithi angideserve ukuba la ngikhona at this point, but God has allowed it to happen, so I should embrace.
You see, leyo nto ikhuluma to spiritual growth. Ngoba khona abanye abazothi ya ngiyabona uyangithanda, ngiyabona ungixolele, ngiyabona you going out of your way to make me feel welcome, but I'm not there yet. Mina ngokwami ngoba ngize lana expecting ukuthi ngizoba isebenzi, but when unginika lolu thando, yes, I've broken a family yethu, I've caused so much pain phakathi kwamama nobaba, mhlawumbe kuba khona ne divorce, and yet wena usangifuna. And I'm thinking of someone ohlele ekhaya mhlawumbe othi, but why would you still want me? I've disappointed you, I've hurt you, I've done everything else. Why would you still want to be with me? And you're speaking to a spiritual maturity of saying, I did not expect it, I do not deserve it, but I'm trusting what Uthando Gaba, what it says. Okay. Siyabonga. Thandwa siyabonga konke. We've seen ubaba. Next time you will see a relationship with the older son. And as you see that, it's a story of its own. Let's conclude with a prayer then.
Nkosi Jesu Kristo, siyabonga ngakho konke osenzela kona. Sikubonga ngokusikhumbuza ukuthi wena unomusa, unothando, uhlala ngaso sonke isikhathi usilindele ukuba sibuyele kuwena. Sengathi ungasibusisa sonke ngokudinga kwethu, usise kakhulukazi labo asebezibona bengafanele umusa wakho. Baphe igracia lokuphenduka namandla okuyela kuwena. Konke lokho sicela ngoJesu Kristo inkosi yethu. Amen. Ngegama ngayisebenzisa indodana nomoya ocebile.
Maradinisu Jesu Kristo kuze kube phakade. Amen.
The Word was made flesh
Then we saw his glory. We saw his glory
when the Word was made flesh.